Welcome back into today's video. It's a very important interview to do with some former friends of Destery Smith, aka CapnDesDes. Now, if you're unfamiliar, this is an OG YouTuber from back in the day who has several accusations of grooming and inappropriate behavior towards his underage fans throughout the last decade. This inappropriate behavior includes soliciting inappropriate images of people under the ages of 18 years old. Most recently, he came out with a response video to these accusations. This interview pertains to things like that. This interview is about an hour long, so I've cut it down into chapters that you can easily click to and navigate. That will be in the pinned comment and in the description. You can just easily click to it. It's also in a podcast format, so you can easily listen to this. Now, if anybody out there wants to use pieces of this interview for their own videos, you're more than welcome to do that. I appreciate Sam, Kimmy, and Leighton for coming on and sharing their stories. So if you could do me a favor, if you could introduce yourself to everybody. Just tell everybody like a little bit about you, who you are.
Yeah. My name is Sweaver. Essentially, I was friends with Destery for about 3 years. And yeah, we just made videos together. He helped me with my stuff. I helped him with his. And yeah, that's kind of it. I stopped talking to him, what was it, roughly June of 2019?
Mm-hmm.
2020, sorry. June. Yeah, June of 2020.
Okay. And we have Kimmy here as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kimmy. I was also a former friend of Destery's. I met him probably October of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it all started. And then I stopped as well in June.
So did you guys all stop in June?
I stopped talking to Destery last year before I moved away from Portland. Him and I just kind of stopped talking because at that point I was starting to realize that he was just not that great of a person and would kind of push his friends against each other.
So we got Leighton, Kimmy, and Sam. From what we talked about yesterday, Destery does this thing where he keeps his friends from talking to each other.
Yeah.
So just kind of explain to me what the dynamic between your guys' friendship is and like what led you guys to just never wanting to talk to him again.
Pretty good example. Just has to do with, Leighton and his partner were living with us at one point. And, when you're living with somebody, you usually talk to them every day, and
Right.
hopefully would set ground rules, and be able to have conversations with each other when things are going wrong. The problem is let's say I'm hanging out with Destery first thing in the morning. And so I'll talk with him and I'll go, hey, well, when Leighton was over here last night, he was saying this thing and this thing and this thing, and, I told him, like, oh, like Sam wouldn't do that. He's a nice guy. And I'm kind of explaining this poorly. Honestly, Leighton or Kimmy, if you guys could take this, my brain's kind of just not 100%
No, I understand, guys.
Basically-
Live streams are like, they can get your nerves to like a high level, but I promise you it's okay. No one's judging you here. Everybody understands. So in about 10 to 15 minutes, things will smooth out and you'll feel way more comfortable. So we'll just start from like we did yesterday and just talk about how Destery and the dynamics was, like how he would, for the most part, he in his close friend group, he would keep you guys from kind of communicating with each other, right?
Yeah. So the way that things would go is he would consistently, like, you'd only hang out with maybe one other person with him or two sometimes. And he'll tell you a lot of negative things about the person that isn't there. And then he'll tell you a lot about what that person has to say about you sometimes. And he'll kind of create things between us. So like he would tell me things about Sam and be like, yeah, Sam thinks you're a piece of shit. And then like I would be like, well, Sam can go fuck himself. And Destery would then go to Sam and be like, Leighton says you can go fuck yourself. So he'll put you in a situation to force you to say something and then use it as like ammunition with someone else just to kind of prevent anyone from sharing a story with each other.
And a lot of the stories that he would tell you guys, I know you talked a lot about how he used Nathan as like a scapegoat, and he would say these terrible things about Nathan that were not necessarily true. And if
I
you
mean,
guys,
none of us here know Nathan.
right?
Like, none of us ever talked to him. We know, like, all of us were fans of Destry when we were younger, and that's the only relationship that like the three of us really had to Nathan at all. Like, so I know nothing about him, so I can't really answer exactly like if he had done the things that Destry was blaming him for, but most of the things that Destry would sometimes say about people would usually be him hinting at himself and slowly revealing things about himself.
Mm-hmm. It was very interesting because there was talk about the hard drive. Now, if for the viewers that don't know, there have been several accounts of this this hard drive that he has on his computer, and it is full. It's like a full collection of just inappropriate images of every. And this is it's gonna get pretty weird, but I'm gonna let these guys talk about this situation because at one point in time he did say that. Let me read here. He did say that this was something that he saw Nathan had, and he was trying to say that this was his doing. And
yeah, he definitely blamed the hard drive thing on Nathan and made like a few comments about how Nathan had a hard drive of like child porn and with like every girl on it. He would just make comments about that every once in a while.
Right.
Yeah, and from my experience, I heard a completely different story where it was a friend of Destry's had made up the hard drive and essentially wanted to try, not necessarily blackmail him with it, but essentially try and tell people he had it and be like, yeah, it's like in a safe in his house or whatever. And so he always told me, oh, that doesn't exist. If somebody ever came into my house looking for it, there's like going to be a note in there that just says, oh, I see who my real friend is, which kind of goes back to the whole idea of him telling certain people like a small tidbit of information. And if somebody else finds out about that tidbit of information, then he knows who's talking to each other in the friend group.
Sam, you could have, sorry to kind of hop in here. What Sam was kind of like finishing there is like, that's another thing that Destry does is he'll make up something and he'll give 5 different versions of the same story to 5 different people, and he'll know who got what story. And then when he hears that story being said from someone else's mouth, he'll then know who talked to who. And it's just like a system that he has set up so he knows who's talking about who and who has what information.
So it's like we talked about
Sam.
this, where it's like a courtier system. For those of you guys that don't know what that is, it's like back in the olden days, like kings and queens in their courts would have these people that would try to like apply for their attention, so to speak, and they would become really good at the arts of manipulation and maneuvering information. And essentially, what was going on in this situation was Destry was. And he would collect information about his closest friends. And you guys talked about how he built these lists.
Yeah. Sam, do you want to take that?
Well, so just really quick before we hop into that, I did want to just hop back to the hard drive really fast, because Kimmy even got like a completely different answer from what I had and from what Leighton has seen physically. So I'll let Kimmy talk on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want to say it was 2019. A similar thing was going on where someone was trying to bring light to the Destry situation. And when I caught wind of it, I went to Destry because, you know, like he was a friend of mine. I like cared about him. And I was like, hey, like, is this true? Because if this is true, like, this is very damaging to your career. And I was like, there's mentionings of you having a hard drive with like CP. What is going on here? And then he told me, oh, I did have a hard drive, but when I turned 18, I felt gross about it, so I threw it away. And I always was like, okay, like, fair, I guess, still creepy. And so when I caught wind of what Leighton was physically seeing.
Yeah, because Leighton actually lived with him for a while. Is that right?
Yeah.
There was a time, just to preface it, I lived in California and I lost my job out of nowhere and then had to move back to the Portland area. And until I could get an apartment, I stayed at Destery's for a few weeks, and then I ended up moving in with Sam and Kenny temporarily. But the whole situation with living with Destery was very weird because he wouldn't let my boyfriend and I stay on the couch. Like, he very much forced us to take his bedroom and then held that over our head and would be like, I'm giving you guys my bedroom. I'm sleeping on the couch. You know, I'm the nicest person ever. No one else would ever do this for you. And he really milked that with us to make us feel awful about that situation, like more than we already did.
Right. Just to make it clear for the viewers, Destery was the one that he was this celebrity. He had all this money, and he would often try to use this stuff to like hang over you guys in specific ways.
Yeah.
So I could agree to that.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that too, because I know that you were touring and there were situations of that. Now, Leighton, I want to know about the situation where you actually visually saw this stuff on his computer. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Okay, so pretty much there was a time that I was at Destery's. I was sitting on the couch in his office, and I was just like drawing something, like making a t-shirt design probably. And Destery's like personal assistant or production assistant, whatever you want to call her, was in the room with him. And Destery is at all times of the day talking about girls and talking about vaginas and talking about sex, and that's all he knows how to talk about. So you just kind of tune it out after a bit. But I was picking up and hearing information as he's just talking about how his ex-girlfriend had the best vagina he'd ever seen. And he got my attention and showed me, he's like, hey, look at this. And he was scrolling through a big folder on his iMac and opened a video, and it's a video of his ex-girlfriend masturbating. And then him and his production assistant, just, that's all they would talk about, and was like bragging about how good she looked. And then he like closes the video out, and I can just see that it's like quite a large folder with a lot of content in it.
Yeah, this production assistant, what was his name?
I mean, I don't really want to know if it's appropriate for us to all say her name.
Oh, we
because
we don't have to.
That's just for, yeah, I'm just trying to, for me personally, I think she's 100% complicit in what Destery's doing, and we know that she's a part of his like Discord server. But yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate to drop her name right now.
Is this the one we talked about yesterday that had the cousin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, her family member.
Okay, so we're not going to say her name.
Preferably, no. I'd rather us not all say her name. We can talk about Chase. He's a piece of shit.
We'll get to Chase.
So we can talk about him. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, we'll keep this on track.
So you saw this.
Yeah, I saw.
You saw this stuff.
Destery's ex-girlfriend.
I think it's important for the viewers to know that you talked a lot about how you feel like Destery did not mentally grow above the age of 16 years old because he got so he became a celebrity in high school and it didn't a further education after that. Can you kind of shine a little light on that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like all I know about Destery is like I was a super fan of him when I was 13 years old, and then I met him when I was 21 and I had just graduated college. So there wasn't like, I just learned a lot about his life beforehand, but I know that he had a rough childhood, and then he got famous when he was 16, and then it kind of really took it from there. And everyone that talks about Destery that knew him back then says that like the fame instantly hit his head. There's stories that you guys can see on Twitter of girls talking about how he used his fame at like 17 or 18 over their heads when he was like 14. Well, when they were 14. So he genuinely is like just a person that seems like he's just been in this like echo chamber where he's never changed. It's always been the same persona. That's why he does the same hairstyle every day. He
didn't
doesn't
really,
nothing changes for him.
Yeah,
like
he didn't
literally
evolve much more after that. He didn't go to college or anything.
No.
He just kind of stayed stuck in that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say I think the thing when Kimmy and I stopped talking with Destery, the thing that really made me want to search for the truth and start, trying to have these discussions with people was simply the fact that so many of the things that I saw between Destery and my roommate, like so many of the things that I saw between him and her, and the way that he treated her, the way that he treated other women while he was with quote unquote our roommate, it lined up almost perfectly. Like it was almost like just a different name, but same exact story,
Right.
or different town or whatever. But I mean, it was the same story. He had one girlfriend at the time, or somebody that he was quite often seeing, to the point where you could kind of just assume they're dating. But then at the same time that he's doing that, he's flying people out to his place. He's constantly talking to people, and I think kind of one thing, like with what Leighton was saying, some people might say, well, what guy would just pull up a video of his ex-girlfriend masturbating, on camera or whatever? And I think the thing that I understand, that's hard to believe, but from my own experience, there have been many times where I've been sitting just in his living room and he just pulls out his Snapchat and just, oh, look, here's a girl squirting on my Snapchat or whatever, or whatever. He just,
Mhm.
I can add
and
to that. That
yeah,
what Sam's saying, that Destry literally on, like, he knows I'm gay. So like it's, for him it's just the excitement of him showing me something and hearing me go what the f-? Or say that's gross.
Right.
So there was so many experiences that I had where he would open and I would see that he had hundreds of pending snaps, and he would just scroll his thumb and stomp and open one, and every time it would be, and it was just always something where it's like within a month of knowing Destry Smith, you were completely desensitized to almost everything
He
with him.
normalized that type of
It's,
behavior around you guys.
yeah, I mean, he genuinely, like, he uses his, like, he only really has people around him that were fans of him. And it's a level of manipulation, I believe, because he will always put you in a position where you have to almost earn the ability to be there when he's filming, or get the spot to be the fifth person in his little car so you can go on a trip with him. Like, it's a it's always like a tier system of us all having to play these games so we can stay on Destry's good side.
And I know you talked about there were times where if he was going to a place, he would kind of like taunt it in front of you if you didn't have enough money. And then when he would go to these places, he would tag friends in a way where you would see it and it would just kind of like hurt your feelings and stuff like that. And you felt like that was something that was purposely done.
Yeah, he definitely would. Like, say he would go with Sam and Kimmy to a trampoline park, then he would make sure that he put it on his Instagram and his Twitter. So then, like, I would know, or another friend would know that, like, we didn't get invited to that day. And then it's little things like that. Like, it's consecutive where he'll be texting you and be like, yeah, we're gonna hang out, and then he just won't respond, and then you'll see that, like, he took a few people to go play Top Golf. So it is like an exclusive, like, club that you're consistently being like, you're we all felt like we had to, like, we all, like, you want Destry to be your friend, like, genuinely, like, you want him to like you, so you put up with his bullshit, and then you laugh at everything he says, and then the moment you slip up and disagree with him, then you're kind of like back at the bottom of the list.
Something that I want to talk about that you brought up yesterday was how he has this kind of point system that he keeps in pictures of different girls' private parts. Can you explain that? Like a tier
Sam or
system
Kimmy,
of.
do you
I
guys have a
think
better
Kimmy
way to
might be
put
able to
it?
talk on this a little bit, because she was definitely on one of the lists.
Well, that's.
Yeah. So, Destry showed me lists that started off with like things that a girl would do that he hated. Like he would say like an individual's name at the top of it, and then down this list is just like every little flaw about her, something that annoys or irks him, whatever. But then it would like, I didn't see these physically. Like these are other girls that would tell me about their list because he would show them to them as well, I guess. But one that was alarming was like there would be lists of people, not just girls, but like friends, and like details about them and details about things they've said or facts, or it was almost like he was trying to keep everything in line. So like he had every back end of, I don't know, just something to keep on someone, or if they said something up, they would be able to like hold it against them or something. But
I know you said that he was like, he had this just list of things, not only just for his friends, but he was almost keeping point systems on people.
correct.
Yeah. So he also had, I think Kimmy actually, she may have just talked about the tiering he had for the best vagina.
That's that's
Yeah.
very creepy, considering that some of these girls are under the age.
Yeah. And I think what's very interesting is, I mean, he had lists such as that. He had things like what Kimmy was saying. He had lists for his friends, like things they like, weird things that have happened to him, all that stuff. But also when he would add girls into his phone, and it wasn't every single one, but Kimmy was a good example that forever, instead of being Kimmy or Kimberly or whatever, it was always 300% legs. And when I first started hanging, you know, when she first kind of came into the friend group, I kind of thought it was like a mutual joke, and I'm sure to an extent it probably was, but it, you know, stuff like that would wind up superseding just the joke, and you know, the girls that he had these titles for or whatever, really just became these objects that he would just bring up all the time. And when I had expressed, you know, interest in Kimmy, you know, her and I had hooked up one night and we had kind of, you know, started hanging out a little more and talking. It was around that same time that he would start overly sexualizing Kimmy in front of me. But the thing is like, at that time I was so like kind of deep in the friendship with him that like it was almost normalized, you know, and it sucks because looking back now, I'm like, I would have never stood for that. That's the kind of shit I would have, you know, either got up and left the room or smacked somebody for saying. But you know, like Leighton was saying, I mean, you almost like crave being his friend. It's kind of like a cult, I guess would be a good way to explain being friends with him.
It's
and so
Stockholm syndrome.
yeah, and so
That's
the
what the
whole
people
time,
that
you
are
know,
with him right now
obviously
have.
you know, Kimmy and I are dating now, you know, and but at the time I was just very interested in her, infatuated. We were hanging out, all this stuff. But anytime I was with Destery and Kimmy would come over, he would objectify her in front of me, constantly talk about how great her tits looked, how great her ass looked,
That's terrible.
yada yada yada. Even going as far as to kind of do this weird kind of soap opera thing with us, where he would tell her one thing that was going, you know, say like, oh well, Sam's gonna go hang out with some big booty goth girl tonight, and she's like, what? But then on the other hand, he'd be telling me that she was hooking up with one of her exes. So I'm like, oh, okay, so she's not interested. And so then in that small space where she's kind of mad at me and I'm, you know, and I'm kind of just mad at her or whatever, that's when he takes his opportunity to come in and be like, hey, like we should like, you know, hook up or whatever, you know. And I think another example too is after Kimmy and I started dating, I mean, he helped her kind of tell me that she liked me, you know. And within just a couple days of her and I, you know, dating or you know, expressing to each other we liked each other, all of a sudden he's hitting her up at like 1 a.m. or whatever, going, hey, I really want you right now, and just weird stuff like that, you know. And but he like helped us get together, you know. And so it's very strange.
It brings
just
me back.
Yeah,
it brings me back to a situation that I overheard Nathan talk about on TikTok. Nathan Owens is Ahoy Natio from Des and Nate, his channel Des and Nate, and where he was trying, it was a very similar situation. He was into a girl named Evie. And Destry was in a relationship. I can't remember the girl's name at the time, but he essentially, that girl went to a family member's for just to visit for a while on a trip, and Nathan Destry told that his girlfriend that he was trying to help Nathan hook up with Evie, but then Destry told Nathan that he is already dating Evie. So it was like a weird situation, but it's very.
I was actually there when that was like happening.
Can you enlighten us on that?
On the whole Destry and Evie thing?
Yeah.
All I know is that like there was a period of time where I was going over to Destry's house a lot, and then I stopped being able to go over, and he was just starting to tell me that it was because him and Amber, his girlfriend, were fighting a lot, and he was saying that she was terrible and she's the reason why his house is always dirty and she ruined everything. And he really painted me this picture that she sucked. And at that time, I was starting to go through like a breakup of my own, and he really like would try to like relate to me with what I was going through and tell me he was going through that. And then he gave me this whole story of like he found this girl and they were friends and then they fell in love, and it was this beautiful story of like they're meant to be together, but unfortunately Destry has this big evil girlfriend that's gonna ruin his life and prevent him from being with his dream girl. So like, of course, as his friend, I'm like, yeah, do that, please. Like, be happy, do whatever you need to do to be happy in life. Like, if you love her, be with her. And next thing I know, Amber and him are like breaking up and they're sleeping in different rooms, and I'm still not able to go over to the house anymore. And then Amber's gone. And then after she's gone, we end up doing this whole thing where I'm getting ready to go to LA to do a video with Destry, and because he wanted to meet up with Shane Dawson. Me and his editor were told we were going to meet with Shane Dawson and do a whole video. And then I had like another thing for my actual job that was happening in LA. And Destry knew that this thing for me was like the biggest part of my career to ever happen. I had to be there for this. And he ended up canceling our trip, knowing that I was going to miss out on like my biggest thing in my career outside of him doing the Shane Dawson thing. Like that was just a part of what I was going there to do. And he canceled the trip and gave zero about me losing my job almost. And a friend of Destry's ended up paying for my flight the following day so I could go and be a part of the podcast that I was supposed to do. And then Destry rescheduled our trip to meet up with Shane because he didn't want Jay and I being mad at him. And then a few weeks later, we go back to LA to do the Shane video. And the moment we get there, the trip stopped being a thing about talking about Shane Dawson, and it instantly went into Destry being like, I'm going to be seeing Evie, the girl of my dreams that you all have known about. And he ended up playing with Jay and I the whole weekend, making us think that we were going to go to Shane's. And he had us do basically nothing for a whole weekend while he went and hung out with this girl. And he told us on the final day that we weren't going to get to do the video with Shane, and that it was like Ryland's fault and that they just were too busy. And it was like at that point we had started to figure out that Destry had made us go to Los Angeles just in case Evie wasn't able to see him. And we would have been his backup trip so he could still have fun if he needed us. But he didn't. So me and Jay spent the whole time like away from him.
Yeah. Something that I wanted to talk about was how you said that he would talk about this other girl and say that she was really dirty and she was not clean and stuff like that, which was interesting, and I felt like a little bit projecting because, and I think it goes back in with how he didn't mature much after high school, that his own house was very dirty and he didn't clean things right, to the point where I felt like he didn't properly take care of his cat. Because, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I mean, the best way to put it is that Destry won't clean his house himself. He absolutely loves to let trash pile up for months and let his cats shit on the floor, and then he'll get a new girl in his life to clean the house for him, and he'll always paint the picture that it's other people that make the house dirty, but it's just him. And I can tell you, I mean, after 3 years of going to his home, there's never not a time that his kitchen didn't have at least one giant trash bag with trash piling out of it. And it's truly just a game for him to get girls to clean up after him because he likes it.
Well, something that really just stuck out to me, and it's kind of just the weirdest thing I've ever heard, was you said that the cat would use the bathroom all over the place, pee, poop, and sometimes he would like play with the cat poop.
Sam, yeah, you wanna
he would like play hockey with it or something.
Sam?
I mean, I don't necessarily want to elaborate too much on this, but I will say that, he does play hockey in his house, and I will say that there are times where poop gets in the way.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
That is probably like one of the worst things I ever say. So the dude's he's got no boundaries at all. None. Zero.
None.
Constantly talks about
very much desensitized in the beginning, like I said.
And you said that all he talks about is sex.
Sometimes he talks about Lord of the Rings. Sometimes he talks about some other pop culture stuff. But yeah, it's pretty much always vaginas and or he's talking about someone.
Now there's another situation. It's a little bit it's a lot bit more serious about stripper dreams from TikTok. You guys want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I can elaborate just a little bit. I'm going to try and keep it kind of short and concise, just so I don't wander. But essentially, she had reached out to me for audio engineering help or recording help. I don't remember, like December 2019, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had come over. We started tracking a song, and we had talked about potentially putting out an EP.
How old was she at this time?
That was all. Sorry?
How old was she at this time?
I think she's about my age, so I can't say definitively, but I would say that she's about 23, 24. She may be older, maybe a little younger, but she is of age. She's over 21.
Back in the time that she was first talking to Destery.
So from what she had expressed to me and what she has posted on Twitter, she was about 12 to 13 when she first started talking to Destery on Twitter. And from what I understand, again, she goes in depth about it both in a video on YouTube and she goes in depth about it on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely look up her statement just to kind of fact check.
I did cover this in my
but
in my video.
Essentially, she was about 12 to 13 when she started talking to him. And from what I understand, Destery had come to Portland for a Death Cab for Cutie concert, which is the first time she made physical contact with him, which was, just she met him, said hi, nothing sexual had happened. But from what I understand, what she has told me and what she has made public, she essentially began to send him nudes. And she did say that he never solicited them. However, it goes back into his whole way of manipulating people where if essentially if she wasn't sending him nudes or flirting with him, et cetera, he would stop talking with her or perhaps not talk with her in the same way, which would then get her flustered. She would get very concerned because again, this was her hero. This was so cool that she was talking to Destery Smith.
And that goes back to the power dynamic. One thing that is very interesting here, I know earlier in the stream we talked about how he would use Nathan as a scapegoat. This doubly happened in this situation, from what I'm told, is that Destery told one of you guys, I think it was Sam, that it was Nathan who was soliciting inappropriate images from this girl, but actually Nathan had never even spoken to that girl. Is that correct?
Yes, so that goes back to when I was helping record a song for her. Essentially, she had expressed just a little bit of concern for the fact that I was hanging out with Destery. And, at the time, again, lost in the sauce of being friends with them. So I was like, oh, this girl obviously is just a crazed fan, whatever. Well, as she leaves my house, 30 minutes later, I get a text from Destery that goes, hey, I see you're working with Stripper Dreams. Just because I don't want to use her real name, but I see you're working with Stripper Dreams. That's cool and all. Just don't tell her about essentially my roommate. Can we use her name, Kimmy? Okay, so essentially he was just like, hey, I see you're working with Stripper Dreams. Don't tell her about Becky and don't tell her about anything going on in my life. And again, I didn't tell Destery that she was coming over, anything like that. So I said, okay, I won't, but you need to explain to me what's going on. So the next time I hung out with him, I just said, hey, so what was going on with the whole Stripper Dreams situation? And he said, well, back in the day when she was probably about 13 or so, Nathan was receiving news from her and seeing her all the time. And so I met up for coffee with her recently to apologize for Nathan's actions. So later on, after I had distance myself from Destery, I called Stripper Dreams and asked her. I said, "Hey, so Destery told me that he apologized to you for things that Nathan had done to you. Did you even know Nathan?" And she said, "No, I never talked to Nathan, never, messaged or tweeted him or even saw him ever." She said she only talked to Destery. She sent Destery, sent Destery. What was that? Oh yeah, and she was underage at the time that it was happening.
So this is
And
all while
so-
she was underage.
Yes, and she also told me, and again, I believe that this is public knowledge, and if it's not, I am very sorry. But she told me that when she met with Destery for coffee, and they hugged, he had made a strange sound, kind of like a kind of sound, is how she explained it to me. And she said she immediately just got really weird vibes off of that, even though he was essentially, supposedly apologizing for what he had done to her. There was kind of a chunk of time where I was in and out of my home, where I was crashing on couches, living out of my car, living out of my van, back when I used to tour with my band and when I would just do solo stuff. And so when I would, film with him, he would always, or not necessarily always, but he would buy me lunch. And I guess now I would say hold it over me. At the time, I was just like, oh, Destery's a good guy, all this stuff. And I think in that way of him buying me food when I didn't have enough money to buy food, though it was
like
a really nice
holding it over you.
gesture, with everything that's come out and everything I know now, I feel like he was doing it so that if and when people came up to me and would try and, tell me their experience with him and say, he's dangerous, or he's done this to me, or you do realize that he's this kind of way, I would just go, man, he's
One
awesome.
thing, it's important to point out that one thing that predators have in common with this kind of trait is they want to play the power dynamic. They want to play the control. See, I covered Davi Vanity's situation. I think you guys are familiar with Davi Vanity. And
I actually almost got flown out to his house when I was 15.
Well, thank God you didn't. But
yeah,
he would very, very much control his friends. He would control their money. He would hold things over their head. It was a situation that replicates some of the things that you were saying, is why I wanted to talk about it. Now, I know you guys talked about how he's very manipulative. He's a very, very good talker and is very good at like controlling the narratives, playing mind games and different things like that. There was a situation, this had to do with Jay, and Jay's not here with us today. Do you guys know very much about the Tinder stuff, or is that something that we'd have to wait for?
The Tinder
Jay?
stuff was really all we really know about the Tinder stuff was that Destery had this video idea where he wanted me and Jay and like his production assistant to make him his own Twitter like Tinder account and find him dates, and it was all gonna be this fake plot so he could get set up with this girl that he had already been talking to for a few months online that Jay and I didn't know anything about. And that video never happened. What's up?
Wiley had a girlfriend, is that right?
I don't know if he had a girlfriend at the time. He always was talking to so many people. Once his girlfriend Amber moved out, we never knew if he was ever seriously in a relationship or not. We just always heard him talking about 7 women at once.
There was a situation.
He just couldn't keep up.
There was a situation with Kimmy's roommate who, I know she talked about this, where she was actually, because my main question is, he said he was using this Tinder for this is very creepy to me. He was using his Tinder to scout for potential people for videos, but it also turned out he was also using it to get girls for escapades while he was in a committed relationship to Kimmy's roommate at the time. And it was actually Kimmy was at work when she ran into some people that matched with him on Tinder. Kimmy, can you talk about this?
Yeah. So yeah, I would be at work. It was like a new job, and we had like an icebreaker question, and it was like, do you know anyone famous? And I was like, I guess if you want to include a YouTuber, CapnDesDes. And then the person actually training me was like, oh, that's like so cool. Actually, he just matched with this person on this team, like on Tinder just recently. And I was like, how recently? And she's like pretty recently. And I was like, interesting. And so before I jumped the gun and like went to my roommate about it, because like that's a whole other story, I went straight to Destery and I just kind of, I was like, hey, so how's this person doing? And
Right.
he was just caught off guard. And this was like the second occurrence that I caught onto him, like not being faithful to my roommate.
And he
Because
just
my
uses
nail
it.
tech also had a client who was like, oh yeah, they're like talking to Destery. And I was like, wow, like small world. And so anytime I found out something, I'd go to Destery with it. And eventually I would like bring it up to Becky because she deserved to know, obviously.
Becky was the girlfriend.
Yes, my roommate.
And there was a time where it became blatantly obvious that Destery was lying to his girlfriend, and you and Sam had to confront Destery about
Multiple times, yes.
You guys want to?
So
Okay.
a little backstory on my roommate is, we care about her. We tried to handle the situation, multiple occurrences, but she was so manipulated by Destry, like she wasn't going to walk away from the situation no matter how much you told her. And so it kind of got to this point where it was exhausting me because I could see her, mental health deteriorating in my house. And the environment of our house got so toxic that we were just like avoiding each other. And it really sucked. And so anytime we're out with Destry and he's bragging about some girl, some bitch, whatever he's going to like plan on having intimacy with, I just would mention, okay, so you're telling Becky this, right? Like Becky knows this? And he'd be like, oh no, or I haven't. And so I'd just be like, okay, you need to like, please leave her alone. Like her mental health is so bad right now. And like, I can't even like emphasize how severe it is. Please just stop. And he'd be like, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah. But he wouldn't stop. And then it got to a point where, Becky's all dressed up. She's like ready to leave the house. And I'm like, please tell me you're not going over there. And, she wouldn't even like confirm or whatever, but I knew where she was. And eventually there was a day where I'm at Destry's house with Sam and someone else. And he's talking about, oh, I'm going to go to Portland because this girl I met like wants me to come over. And like, she really wants to like bang. I'm like, okay, well, are you still involved with Becky? It's none of my business, but are you? And he like took a pause and he like chuckled and he's like, I can't lie to you guys. Yeah, I'm still banging Becky. And I was like, well, you need to tell her because Becky has always been adamant with him in the subject that if he was going to ever, pursue another woman while being with Becky, she only asked that he would, use protection with her. And I feel like that's very fair.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just, tell her, no, like, I'm not seeing anyone else, just you. And it was just like completely gaslighting her. And to like, she knew that he was doing something, but he would just try to convince her that nothing was going on. And
now I want to say, while all this situation was going on, he was still having a relationship. Even when he had this girlfriend, even when he was doing the Tinder stuff, he still had this other girl who was basically his assistant that we're not naming, that he was still having relationships. That's correct?
Yeah, so I think with that particular instance, that is something that we can merely speculate on simply because of how weird the situation was.
Right.
And the way that we received information and then the way the information was then retracted from us. And so it's one of those things where I cannot say definitively, yes, this was 100% happening, but I can say that it is suspicious the way that the information was delivered to Leighton and the way that it was delivered to other members of our group, and then the way that it was walked back and retracted by both Destry and the assistant.
I see. There was another situation.
They walked it back to me months later. I never even got a confirmation about it. They never even really cared to make sure I knew truth.
There was another situation that had to do with the cousin of that girl that we're not going to name, and I assume we're not going to name the cousin either, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. My main concern about this situation is that This cousin first met Destery when she was around the age of 13 years old, and at one point it progressed into this person and her cousin. He talked them into having a shower with him. Are you guys comfortable talking about that?
I mean, we don't know when he met his production assistant's cousin. But yeah, the moment she turned 18, he had convinced the two of them to like shower with him, and then he had like bragged about it to other people. And it was just all I can really say about the situation is that like Destry was always told by this production assistant that he could never have a relationship with her cousin, that she was protective of her cousin, and she just always politely said, but in a mean way, don't touch my cousin.
Right.
And the Destry always behind her back would say, I'm gonna pick her cousin, I'm gonna, have sex with her cousin, and he would be texting her, and like it was truly like his goal to do that just because it was off limits.
That's disgusting. There was a couple other situations. There was one to do with a girl that was 17 years old at the time that ended up having a kid. Are you guys comfortable talking about that?
Do you guys know any? I don't think I know much about that one besides
so
I met her
that
one
was-
time.
Yeah, so that was something that I kind of got from essentially the only thing that I really know
This
in
this
this
was another
particular
situation that Jay
situation
knew
is
more
simply
about.
that when they started talking, I do believe that she was either underage or freshly 18. And there was kind of a running joke in the friend group where it was like her kid might be Destry's because right after they stopped having intimacy or essentially when they stopped being intimate, she got with somebody else and then she got pregnant. And so the whole kind of joke was, oh, Destry might have a kid.
But can I just say that like that incident, like that relationship, all of that happened before any of us knew him. And right when I met Destry, one of the first things we ever did was go to the zoo together to see Christmas lights. And she was there and he avoided it in a weird way, but then was like, all right, let's just get it out of the way and say hi to her. And he literally said to me, this is my child. Like I didn't know it was a joke or I didn't know what it was. He just straight out of the gate was like, yeah, girl, this is my child.
That's crazy.
So like, and his girlfriend I think was there with us that night at the zoo.
His
I'm pretty
girlfriend was
sure.
there at the zoo as well?
Sorry, I didn't hear you there.
You said his girlfriend was with him?
I'm pretty positive his girlfriend was with us that night and she just didn't walk up to her with him and I. I think he just like we were leaving and it was like a quick little like hey hello to her as we were walking by and it was just Destry and I.
The last thing I want to talk about here is this tour he took you on of his hometown.
So Destry in 2019 he took me and his production assistant and we road tripped to his hometown. And the whole time, like I was thinking we were going to be making a big video about it because that's what he told us. We were making a video on where he came from and how he was able to be successful. And like I even had the idea because like I said, I was a fan of him when I was younger. So I was like, let's go to that shitty little house that you lived in when you started and like where your most famous video was filmed. And like we had all these ideas, but the moment we got there, it was this entire trip that was a highlight reel of every bad thing Destry had ever done. For like 2 days straight, he slowly drove us around his hometown and pointed out, like he would literally be like, hey, you see that gazebo? Girl, or this girl on top of that gazebo. Or it would be like, hey, you see that building? I broke into that building and I stole this. And then he showed me like a school that he broke into and stole computers from. And it was just nothing but just like a weekend of like, look at all the bad things I did in my past. These are all the girls that I had sex with here. and it was nothing but trophies to him. He thought it was funny. He loved making fun of the fact that I wasn't enjoying the trip, and it was just this weird thing that like I didn't see the purpose of the trip whatsoever, and it ended with like us staying at this resort near his hometown that he had always wanted to go to, and then we just go home. And the trip was nothing. It was literally just a highlight reel to look at what he had done wrong in his past and for him to brag about it.
And he did the same thing with Evie.
Evie. Yeah, he like to the point where he like took us to go out to the middle of nowhere to meet his grandma. And before we got there, he like gave us all this talk and was like, "You guys are the first person to ever meet my grandma. Nobody meets my grandma. You guys are so lucky to be in this and meet this moment." And so
It's weird.
we got to meet his grandma, and it was just a normal ass evening.
Was she a sweet lady?
Like Evie, yeah, his grandma was nice as shit. Her like boyfriend and I talked. I gave him a lot of cat facts. Him and I talked about cats for a while. But
Destry needs cat facts.
Yeah, no, he needs some help with that. But either way though, yeah, like we just had this time, and he just couldn't stop telling us how important it was that we were meeting his grandma. And then Nicole does the exact same trip with him a few months later, and he made it out to her as if no one had ever met his grandma. And he did the same thing, but I don't want to tell her story for her.
Right.
But she was public in saying that like Destry had made his grandma tell her to have babies with him. Like he forced his grandma to be like, have my grandson's babies.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
My closing thoughts on this is, well, I keep getting a question in chat. They want me to ask you guys about a ladder story. Does that ring a bell?
So I had seen some tweets about it. I personally don't know anything about it simply because I was not around at the time that was a thing, or if it's still a thing,
I don't know what they're talking
I was
about.
never told about it.
I don't know what.
Yeah, what is that?
What is the ladder story?
So, from what I remember from reading some tweets, there was a whole thing, I believe when he was still living with Nathan, where he, I think, might have been when he was dating Amber. But from what I understand, he had a ladder where he could sneak out of his bedroom window, or sneak people into his bedroom. But again,
so the people in his house would know he was leaving and having sex with people or cheating.
He was just much of a cheater.
But again, that is something that I cannot confirm or deny. That was something that, if it was a thing, was either before my time or something that he never brought to my attention. So I can't speak.
Yeah, we all were told that story like a few weeks ago.
I know.
So like,
that's crazy. This dude was like the worst of the worst, the worst of the worst. And I know you guys saw his video. What did you guys think about his response video to this stuff?
I just want to start by saying that Destry is incredibly smart with how he begins manipulation, and he 100% probably grew that beard out just so he could look like he's been shaken up over the past month and look like things have changed and he's upset and he's going through it. But like, he literally looks like that when he's not filming. He's always never shaven, and he just walks around in pajama pants and a beanie. So like, that's how the dude always looks.
Well, I would say, and this is something that I will also let Kimmy elaborate on, because we both kind of came to the conclusion that in his video, he never apologized, and it really felt like he was more so putting the blame not only on survivors and victims, but the fans as well. And, you know, again, I just think it's interesting that instead of even just a blanket apology and him legitimately trying to just not do this type of shit anymore would be enough for me. For me myself, I'm not speaking for anybody else. For me myself, if he made even just a blanket apology and just tried to be better, that would be so much better than him completely negating or just completely negating the allegations, completely. Just essentially just gaslighting everybody. But again, like, Kimmy also has her own take on it, and I kind of want her to share kind of her thoughts on it if she's comfortable.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep muting myself because I know that echoing's really annoying. So I don't know, like, Destry always has this way of approaching you when he quote unquote apologize Becky said that that video reminded her of any time she would try to like, you know, visit and like discuss something that was bothering her. And he just kind of like manipulates it into a way that makes you feel like he's apologizing, but he's not apologizing. I don't know. But something that I noticed in there was like he said, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. But if it were me having that high of a like severe allegation, I feel like I would throw anyone under the bus if it meant saving my name. That's just me.
I think it's just his natural reaction to try to blackmail people or to want to hold that manipulation. So that's why he just is like, yeah, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, because it's like that's what he thinks anybody else to do, because that's what he wants to do.
You know, it kind of makes him, he wants to come off as the good guy. One thing that put a hole in his apology video straight out the gate was the fact that Shannon Taylor, the situation with Shannon Taylor happened just 3 weeks ago. And I'm talking to Shannon Taylor about this, and she's going to do her own video on this stuff as well. And she's already released Twitter statements about it, but I mean, that right there shows that his apology was just full of crap. And another thing I want to say real quick, I do want to come back to that, but another thing I want to say is going back to the mass of this whole thing of just that he had and these inappropriate images that he would collect, and he would put it in tier lists, and who had the best this, who had the best that. This is also verified in another story about Chase. What's Chase's last name?
Gallarza.
Oh, Chase Gallarza, who is another friend of Destery. Still is a friend of Destery. A girl.
Complicit.
Very complicit. A girl. He has his own allegations, by the way. A girl said that she met. Chase talked her into meeting for coffee. They met for coffee, and then Chase tells this girl that he knows exactly what her downstairs area looks like because Destery had showed him a picture of it. That's the worst, most vile, terrible thing that I've ever heard.
I can tell you that I literally watched Chase show to people on the set of the Spooky Man music video that Destery made. I walked up and caught him showing a girl a video, and I'm pretty sure he said it was his ex. And I instantly was like, what the f? And I went and told Destery, and he goes, man, that's just Chase. Like, Destery literally used to introduce people to Chase and say, hey, this is my friend, Creepy Chase.
Oh, that's weird.
He straight up knows the type of person that Chase is, and he's fine with it. Destery, I used to complain to Destery all the time about how Chase talking to fans, and I never liked the guy. I knew he sucked the moment I met him, and he's just a terrible person. But this guy, literally, Destery will defend him forever, but Destery will still talk on him at the exact same time and say that he's aware of how bad Chase is.
I guess my closing question on this to you guys is, what do you want to see happen to Destery? What do you think deserves to happen?
I mean, prison.
Like,
I mean, I think Destery literally look at the facts here, is that like Destery's been on YouTube for what, like 13 years. There's people talking about him abusing them when he was in high school.
Right.
He clearly, this isn't a pattern of behavior of something that can change. This is literally who he is. This is what he likes to do. The way Destery treats women is disgusting. He sexualizes every person in his life. He sexualized me. He sexualized Sam. He sexualized Kimmy. Everyone in his life is just an object to him. And he's this fucking golden god, when at the same time he won't even like I'll tell you this, Destery knew very well the people that I worked with, and he would go out of his way to pretend to not know who they were, and then in front of me steal their video ideas and edit his videos to look like the people I worked with. So he's just this little chameleon that tries to play this image to everybody, and it's now finally just kind of falling apart. And it's really sad because all of us loved him.
Yeah, and I mean, to kind of piggyback on that as well, you know, it's hard because when you become friends with Destery, it becomes such an intense friendship. And I've told a bunch of people, you know, it was like when him and I were friends, like I legitimately considered him like my best friend or one of my best friends. And he taught me a lot of stuff about videography. You know, he helped push me to, better myself, get a better camera, taught me a lot about, photography, Photoshop, all sorts of stuff, and when I started to realize what was going on and started to see through all of it, it hurt so bad because there was the whole, like, my friend that has taught me so much about, creating, and the friend that has taken me to lunch, the friend that has, taken me on cool adventures and given me a couple shout outs and stuff. It's like, it's just so nice. You think of him as such a nice guy, but you start really looking around, you really think about it, and you listen to people's stories and go, that sounds like what I saw happen last Thursday, or that sounds like what was going on a couple months ago, but that was something that happened 10 years ago. And you start looking around and you realize it's just this weird facade, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Because end of the day, we all loved Destery. We all thought he was a great dude, but he's just not. And
you love the
sucks,
person that you thought he was.
Yeah, I also would like to piggyback off that, just being in that group setting too. Like, when I went into this, like, I literally met Destery because of Snapchat. It was his, like, casting for The Legend of the Spooky Man, and he wanted people in it. And so I responded. He reached back out immediately, and then he was like, wow, you're overqualified, please. And so, I'm excited. Like, I was flipping, dude. Like, I was like, this was my favorite YouTuber growing up. What the heck? And instantly after I met him, I was like, oh man, this guy's ego, whatever. But, I actually became friends with another girl that was involved with him emotionally and physically. And that's how I got real deep into the friend group, was she brought me around. And so that's how I met Sam. That's how I met Leighton, But
And I was introduced to Kimmy as Kimmy's a bad person.
yeah,
I was told that Kimmy sucks, and I just never even had a relationship with Kimmy, like, at all. Her and I would be in the same house together.
So here's my question.
And we wouldn't even talk.
Did Destry tell each and every one of you that each and every one of you were bad people?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, he definitely had a story for everyone, and me included. Like, I went into this wanting just a friend, and sorry, I'm like distracted. I went into this just wanting to be a friend. Like, I thought I'd be cool. And I did get that. I got a lot of friends, actually. And after a while, me and Sam started dating, and it was like super cool. We got all the buddies together, and it seemed like awesome. Well, then, like, I'd start like picking up on these weird vibes from Destry, and I reached out to him like, hey, did I do something? Like, I just have this feeling like I did something and you're upset with me. And he's like, oh, no, Kimmy, like, we're fine. Like, I'm sorry. You can talk to Becky or Sam. Like, I'm just being quiet. I'm like, okay. But then I'd go over to their place because Sam and I are pretty much inseparable. We just have fun all the time. And so I would go with him to Destry's all the time because I was invited to. But I would get a vibe from Destry, like, he would do stuff that didn't involve me. So I just end up sitting in his apartment feeling like secluded. And so then after a while, I was like, Sam, I don't really want to go. Like, I don't feel like I'm really necessarily wanted there. And so then there was a day that he showed up to Destry's alone, and Destry's like, oh, where's Kimmy? Like, she's always welcome here. But on the same time, he's texting Becky, like, guess who finally didn't show up this time? And then,
he literally complained to everybody about you two going places together. He hated your relationship.
Yeah, and it was funny because he totally would brag to his friends, like, oh, yes, I love Kimmy and Sam together. They're great. Like, totally support them. But then, like, someone else, he wants that shit.
He strikes me as the type of person that wants everything. He wants to be a part of everything. He wants anybody that's in his life, he wants everything that they have. And
he just has to have the control. Yeah, like, I introduced him to, there's little things that you can show Destry and he instantly will take from you and make it his. Like, little things like as small as, like, I showed him like smart bulbs, and he got obsessed with like trying to have as many smart lights in his house as me. And like, to keep up with that, or like when I had like a terrible like bipolar manic phase a few years ago and lost like 30 pounds in 2 months. And Destry kind of like followed me in that and was like, yeah, I'm gonna work out too. And it was like, he kind of mirrors whoever's around him. So like when he met Sam, Destry became even more interested in music and wanting to go out to nightclubs that like Sam knew of. And he very much takes like there was a game that me and my best friends used to play in my hometown when we were like 15 in high school. And I told Destery about it because it had a funny name, and he straight up fucking stole my story and then put it in one of his videos and claimed that he was the one that created this archery league with friends that I had created maybe 9 or 8 years before meeting him.
It's very odd. I can
Yeah,
tell.
like he steals everyone's life around or just takes the things that he likes from people.
I can tell that this situation really hurt you guys, and I can tell that there's a lot of emotions in that. And I'm sorry that it turned out this way, but I'm really proud of you guys.
It's
and
been an overwhelming month.
I think you guys are great
Yeah.
people, and I think that your words are making a difference here, and I just really appreciate you
I
for
think
coming
just
on.
to kind of like, I don't want to like speak on behalf of Sam and Kimmy, but I know like the three of us as friends have talked more in the past month than we ever had. And this has been so triggering for all of us to be finding out things that Destry was saying about all of us, or even just like to know that I participated in videos and podcasts with someone that was at that exact time turning around and possibly seeing underage fans when I was in his home or when I was making content with him, or even like I made him t-shirts that he forced me to draw in a style that I didn't want to because he wanted the cutier stuff that like would look good to his fan base. And it just, now that I really think about it, it's like I feel so disgusting that I provided work to someone that then turned around and used what I made and to meet kids with. It just like it makes me disgusted. It makes me sad. I wish the videos with me in it were off the internet. I wish he would take the shirts down that I designed for him. Like I want nothing to do with Destry. I cut him out of my life a year ago because I was overwhelmed with the way that he made me feel.
I understand.
So this has all been a lot.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you guys for coming on. I'll talk to you guys more about this offline. But and again, I'm sorry that you guys had to go through that. I know what it feels like to end friendships, and I know how the like it gets like in the background of your thoughts. So I know that you guys are feeling it, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that. And I just thank you for coming on, because I believe your stories has shed a lot of light into the personality and type of person that Destry is, and I think it'll help people moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think really the biggest part of this is that just needs to be remembered is that like he has done this from the beginning of his career. He hasn't stopped. So 100% of the time that Des and Nate and CapnDesDes has existed, he has abused his platform. And to me, it's unacceptable. There's never an okay time to go out and talk to fans
I agree.
and solicit from them. And there's for him and Chase to say that and dating and having sex with children is normal where they come from. They said that literally isn't okay. It makes me mad. Like it genuinely frustrates me. I don't like being an angry person, but Destry pisses me off, and so does Chase. I don't think these people are okay.
I agree with that.
I think a good thing to point out, and I know we're trying to wrap up, so I'm going to keep this really short, is simply that literally none of us want to do this in terms of just like, this is not fun, this isn't comfortable, this isn't for clout. In fact, I have not been this stressed in a very long time. But I feel like it's really important, to make sure that right now, while there's all this steam, behind it, that people are just aware. Because, as you can see from old Tumblr posts, like from 10 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever, people have tried to talk about this before, and either they get stamped out, or Destry goes private, or Destry just deletes stuff. And the main thing here, is just he has not changed in the decade that he has been doing this, as Leighton said. as of like 3 weeks ago or to a month ago, when all this
Still doing
started,
it.
he was still doing the same as Shannon will be able to show you guys in her video. And I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that like he's just, he's dangerous. He's very, very dangerous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I see we're getting a lot of positivity turtles in the chat for you guys. I think your words have made a big impact in here, and we're not going to stop covering this here until the point's made very, very clear. But again, I want to thank you guys for coming on and sharing your stories, and I will talk to you later on about this stuff.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank
Timmy,
you, my
Sam,
friend. Thank you, chat.
Leighton, sorry.
Leighton. No, you're fine.
Leighton,
No one can
okay.
pronounce my name.
Thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah, see ya. Thank you.
See ya.